I'm Megan. Thanks to my students for coming back to be with me. And if you're new to my channel, this will be a great series for you. The next few weeks or so, we're going to be doing one somatic yoga movement per week. And this one starts out with the pelvic tilt, which is a great movement. It's really the foundation of so many things we do in somatic yoga, including using our core muscles. But for now, we're going to use it to release and relax the hips and the back. And know that when we do these movements, we're recreating two very common postural issues that come up when we have pain, when we have fear, or any sort of trauma. And one of them is what we call the red light reflex. And you'll see when people are very rounded over, head forward, and the tailbone goes under. So I call it dog tail, like a dog just got in trouble. So that's our red light reflex. The back muscles are stretched and the front muscles are compressed. The other one that we'll be simulating or going right into is the green light reflex. The green light reflex is just the opposite. It would be this idea of shoulders back, heart forward. So we're really very exposed and open and expressive in the front body, and the back body is contracted or compressed. You'll see that oftentimes as the low back lifting up in a shortness and the lumbar curve. So we're going to purposely go through those two movements. Before we do, consider having two blankets with you for all these series, a smaller blanket or pillow for underneath your head perhaps. And then we're going to start each one by landing and locating, which means we're going to be lying on the ground. And I highly recommend you take a blanket, a pillow, something underneath your knees or your thighs, just to relax your low back a little bit more, so however high it needs to be, and come on down onto the ground. Or you can do these in bed if you'd prefer. So for me, my head is not so far back that I need something underneath it. You'll know because your gaze will go behind you or your shoulders will be lifting off the floor. What we're looking to find is the front of the throat is soft and relaxed, and there's a natural curve in the neck. So if you feel like your throat is stretching too much and there's a big curve in the back of your neck, you probably want to put something underneath the head, just a little bit of a lift. And take a moment to shake out your legs. You can rock your pelvis, squiggle your shoulders around, move your head from side to side, just in a way to experience the ground underneath you through gentle, playful movements. Playful is the key here. And then stop and see if you can find stillness within your body. And don't be surprised that within that stillness, not only will your mind want to wander, that's normal, but within the stillness, there's sensation in the body. And just see, where do you feel sensation? So sometimes it's even discomfort or pain. But can you be present in whatever you feel in your body? And then start to notice the back body. The back's the heels, the calves, the thighs, the whole back of the buttocks, the length of the spine from the tailbone all the way to the neck, the shoulders, the base of the skull, and even the arms. Notice when you're breathing in. And as you breathe in, sense the movement of your breath. You might even place your hands where you feel that movement. Use your hands as tools to keep you present in their breath. As you breathe out, just let the back body land into the ground. So notice anywhere you're being resistant, you're not just allowing the body to land. And continue just taking breaths in. Feel the movement of your breath. Where is your body stretching or expanding? And breathing out, letting the whole back body land and release into the ground. So somatic yoga is a quiet practice. It doesn't take effort. In fact, usually less effort is better. And it's about the inner experience. It's not about what it looks like on the outside, but more about what you feel. So starting in this space of stillness, receiving the support of the ground, can you be present in whatever it is that you feel in your body, maybe even witnessing your own thoughts. If you don't like those thoughts, you can change them. Create a nice affirmation for yourself. So this is just like before we go anywhere in our car, now we set our GPS. You're setting your GPS to feel where you are today, because that changes every day. You may be starting from a new space. Feel where you are, and then set that roadmap. How much sensation do you want in these movements today? On a scale of 1 to 10, just a little bit? Do you want a lot? How fast do you want to go? What volume do you want your sensation to be? And at any time, if you don't like the music, you don't like the sound, change the station. Change what your mind is saying. Think of that affirmation or positive intention, an image in your mind, maybe a place you go. And breathe that into your body. Breathe out, just feel the ground. 3 more rounds of breath. And then we'll get ready for the pelvic tilting. So we're going to slide the feet in, bending the knees. We can remove whatever's underneath you. And this is a very important position in somatic yoga. We call it constructive rest. So first find the fronts of your hip bones. Can you find those bony parts of your hips? And you might lift just the left leg up and see if you can line up the center of your bony hip with the center of your kneecap, and think of your middle toe. So those are all in a straight line, and then let the foot just come down to the ground. You can do that with the right leg as well. Your hip bone, center of the knee, center toe. So your feet, your knees, and your hips are all in about the same line. So not too wide apart, not too close together. And then we want to find the most comfortable position for our back and spine. So if you start to take baby steps, bringing your heels a little bit in towards your buttocks, notice how as you do that, you might feel the low back press into the ground. It'll get longer, but it'll push into the ground, and your tailbone at the bottom of the spine might lift up towards the ceiling a little bit. So that's really creating too much length in the low back, and it's taking our pelvis down into the ground. We'll be doing that in a movement, but what we want for now is a neutral pelvis, right in the middle. So if you start to slowly tiptoe your feet out, walk them away from you, notice when you start to create maybe just a little bit of an arch or a lift in the low back. You can still feel those hip points. And if you lock your feet too far out, you'll notice that your back will really start to lift and those hip points will tip forward. You might even feel it like a little pulling or a compression in the low back. So that would be too far. So you want to find that happy medium. I call it the Goldilocks spot. And just let your feet stay in that position. So I'm going to lose the blanket because I actually don't need it, but you can keep it under there. Place your hands on your abdomen and take a nice soft breath into your abdomen. If for any reason it doesn't work to relocate your breath to another place, or you start to feel anxious, just go back to your natural breath. Otherwise, see what it feels like. Think of your abdomen like a big balloon. Feel that balloon as you breathe in and softly empty it as you breathe out. And you might place your 2 fingers on those hip bones again. And as you breathe in, think of those hip bones lifting up and tilting slightly forward. So it's like your abdomen is filling and it's lifting your low back off the ground. You're going to increase the arch in the low back. As you breathe out, just let it come down and land. So inhaling, belly rises, low back lifts, pelvis tilts forward. So we call that an anterior tilt, or we're creating the green light reflex in the pelvis. Exhale, release. Just try this on a few times. Inhale, float the belly up. Let the low back lift too. Exhale, let it land. So something we watch for is, can you keep the legs relaxed? Think of moving from your abdomen and your pelvis. And right now we're moving by lifting away from gravity on the inhale. So think your belly's lifting and floating up. Your back is lifting and floating up. But we can also make this exact same movement by pushing into gravity. So locate yourself from your tailbone. Just imagine where your tailbone is at the base of your spine. And now as you breathe in, you're still going to float up in the belly, but think of pushing that tailbone down and forward just a little bit. There's that arch again. As you breathe out, release that. Let your tailbone just come back to its neutral position. So we breathe in, push the tailbone down, and belly will float up. Low back shortens. Breathe out, relax. Play with this one. So there may have been one of the two ways to move that felt better. And if you do have low back pain, underdo. Just slightly arch, just a little bit of that forward tilt as you breathe in. Breathe out, release, relax. But does it feel better, so more pleasure or less discomfort to move by pressing the tailbone into the ground or lifting the belly and lifting the low back away from the ground? Maybe some combination. Just see how that feels. So where can you create your best forward pelvic tilt, green light reflex with the most comfort? And then relax, pause for just a moment. Always notice how you feel. Give yourself the opportunity to readjust. So readjusting could even mean hugging your knees into your chest. Another thing that I really like to do is the full body yawn, which is how we learn pandiculation in somatic yoga. So we stretch our legs and our arms on an inhalation. You'll feel your back arch. Tighten the muscles to the bones so your whole body yawns, your mouth opens. And as you breathe out, you just let it go. Think of your dogs and your cats and all your animals at home. Every time they get up, they do this pandiculation. So that's there for you too. And then if you did that, place your feet back in the constructive rest position. Nice neutral pelvis. Now focus on your exhalation. Just notice when you're breathing out. And find the little bit of it might feel like an air pocket underneath your low back. You could even put your hand under there. So the low back, low ribs. And as you breathe out and the belly empties, gently press that low back and low ribs area, that air pocket, into the ground. Breathe in, just release that. Breathe out, press low back and low ribs down. You're also rolling onto the top of your sacrum, that triangular bone. You're lengthening your low back. Breathe in, just release it. Breathe out. You'll feel the abdomen come in a little bit, close off, and press the low back down. So now we're creating that posterior tilt, or the red light reflex. The tailbone's going up, the pelvis is going back, but by pushing into the ground with the low back and low ribs. Seeing how that feels for you. Press down with low back, low ribs. But just as with the forward tilt, we can do this the opposite way. So instead of pushing into the ground, find your tailbone again. And now as you exhale, lift your tailbone up a little bit and notice how your pelvis tilts back. So your pelvis is like a bowl tilting back towards your navel center. Breathe in, release that. Breathe out. Lift the tailbone. Feel the pelvis. Rock back. The low back lengthens and there's compression in the front of the abdomen. So the movement may look the same if I could see you right now, but it feels different for you if you start it by pressing into the low back and low ribs on exhale versus lifting the tailbone. Which one feels smoother, more organic, more pleasurable? Maybe some combination of the two. So finding your end range of motion with the most ease. So if you're like me and you've done this for a lot of years, you'll start to just naturally bring these two movements together. But what we can see is go back to that first inhalation. We were floating up through the belly, the low back, the tailbone was down. So the pelvis, that bowl, was tipping forward and down. You can feel your two hip bones still. As you breathe out, You're pushing low back, low ribs into the ground, lifting the tailbone. The pelvis is tilting back towards your navel center and down. So just feeling that arching on the inhale and curling on the exhale. Keeping the legs relaxed. Give yourself permission to use less effort. Soften the way the feet are touching the earth, yet receive the support of the earth underneath the feet. And the playful part, think of your sacrum and your tailbone and the way it's like you're painting with them. As you exhale, you come to the top of the hips and the sacrum. As you inhale, you roll through your sacrum and come all the way to your tailbone. So you can use the ground for feedback to feel yourself rolling through your low back, the sacred sacrum. You could also focus on the front side. As you breathe in, notice the way there's expansiveness and freedom from hip to hip in the front of the belly, or from your navel center to your pubic bone. As you breathe out, feel that gentle compression in the abdomen. So I like to say that this is a tail to tongue movement. So I want you to notice, sometimes we change it just by noticing it, but do your best to just notice if your head and your neck are moving right now. Are they responding to the movement in the pelvis? And if so, that's always a healthy sign. If it's not, we can help it. We can help to teach our nervous system how the neck and the pelvis play together. So as you're inhaling and the pelvis tilts forward, so the low back is shortening, we bring the nose towards the tail. So as the low back shortens at the top of the inhale, the back of the neck lengthens. Those are the two main curves in our back. So low back lengthens, back of the neck, low back shortens on the inhale, back of the neck lengthens. As you exhale and the tailbone lifts, it's like the tail is following the nose. The nose goes back behind you. The low back lengthens and the curve in the neck increases or shortens. So think of having a string from your tail to your tongue. As you inhale, your tongue follows your tail. As you exhale, the tail follows the tongue. That may take a moment to coordinate. Anytime you want, you can stop and be still or hug your knees in or take that full body yawn. Don't wait for me to tell you. That's the beauty of somatics. You're listening from the inside, giving your body what you need. And how are you creating this movement? In the most easeful way. And just like you could feel yourself rolling from the top to the bottom of the pelvis and back from the bottom to the top, notice the feeling of rolling through the back of the skull, from the top of the skull to the base of the neck. Using the floor to find yourself, to find sensation. And then we think about recreating those two primary responses to stress. And there's another one we can add in, which brings the shoulders. But before we do that, I'll give you the opportunity to either or I should say, hug your knees in, maybe give your low back a little massage, or take a big breath in, take a full body yawn, hug the muscles, the bones, stretch, 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 liven everything up, and then breathe out and just let it go. Feet back into constructive rest. Let's see how it feels to play with this one with the shoulders. So sensing where your shoulders are, feel your collarbones and your shoulder blades in the backside, and notice where your arms are. Now as you breathe in, think of your arms like rolling pins and roll your arms away from your heart. So you're externally rotating your arm bones. Externally rotating as you inhale. As you exhale, you're going to internally rotate the arm bones. So think of rolling your arm bones towards your heart. So you'll feel it tightening in the front of the shoulders around the collarbone. That's your exhale. Inhale, feel the collarbone spread apart, roll the arms away, and we're adding that pelvic tilting. Exhale, roll the shoulder blades in. So this gets a little bit more like juggling balls. We started, go back to just the idea of the arch and curled pelvis. See if your skull is responding, that tail to tongue. And then inhaling, rolling the arm bones out. You might even press the outer shoulder blades into the ground. So now you're really creating more of that arch in the back body. That's that green light reflex, the spaciousness of the front body. And as you exhale, you're rolling the arm bones in, creating that red light reflex. Feel the way the front body is shut down and compressed and the back body spacious. Just inviting yourself to explore these two positions, but everything in between, from beginning to end. And the breath will help to guide you, because the breath is our answer to staying present in our nervous system. If we're breathing in a healthy way, so if your breath gets choppy, you could stop. That's the other side. But if you're breathing in a healthy way, you know that your nervous system is on course for healing. When we stop breathing or hold our breath in any way, that's a sign that the nervous system might be confused or uncomfortable. You can start to slide the arms overhead on the inhale, and notice at the top of the inhale now how your weight is resting on the bottom of the tailbone and the top of the shoulder blades. Your back is arching away from the ground. And then bottom of the exhalation, your weight is resting on the center of the spine, the tailbone and the backs of the shoulders can lift up. The front body's compressed, back body is spacious. Taking just a few more. So this is the full arch and curl with the arms. But we can add even one more ball. Before we do that though, just stop, hug your knees in, take a full body stretch if you'd like, or just be present in the stillness of sensation. So doing somatic yoga is a bit like cooking. Anytime we add an ingredient, we add a new movement or some new way to make the movement, we want to stop and pause and see what it tastes like in your body. So the last thing we can play with is the legs. You might even just leave the arms out of it for a moment, but start to notice where the pinky toe side of your feet are. Can you see them today? Are they available to you? And as you breathe in and arch, so that pelvis is going into the forward tilt, nose towards the tail, see if you can drop onto the pinky toe side of the feet. So what you'll feel is as the belly and the front body stretching, so will the inner thighs or groins. And as you breathe out, you're going to press low back, low ribs down, and also hug the inner thighs just a bit. So the knees, inner knees can even come together. Inhale, drop open onto the pinky toe side of the feet. Exhale, close the legs, lift the tailbone, or press low back, low ribs. So I like to think that the front of the body, there's connection to the inner thighs. So as the front body stretches or expands, feels that freedom, so do the inner thighs. As the front body compresses, the inner thighs compress. And this gets really important when we start to use these for strengthening the deep core stabilizer muscles. But for now, just sense the way the front and the inner thighs are working together, doing the same thing. And then you might think of your back body too. Visualize how on your inhalation, the back body is compressing and arching, and you might feel a little compression in your outer hips. And as you breathe out and your back body is spacious, the outer hips get just a little bit of a stretch. So those align with one another. And you're just falling on the pinky toe side of your feet. So now, if you want to put all this together for the full freedom of the pelvic tilt as you breathe in, you can drop onto the pinky toe side, arch your back. You might externally rotate your arm bones, maybe even slide them. Take your nose towards your tail. As you breathe out, bring the legs together, lift the tail, press low back, low ribs. You can hug your shoulder blades. So I like to think press the collarbones a little bit together. Full body arch and curl. If it feels like it's too much, just pick one part to feel. It might be something simple like the pinky toe side of your feet. And sometimes when we're in pain, we use the distraction method. So instead of being present in the area that's grumpy, you could be present in something like your little toe, or maybe your neck or your shoulders. If your neck and shoulders are being grumpy, try being present in the pelvis. Feel the wholeness of your body moving in and out. There's no end goal ever in somatic yoga. There's no end pose. We stay safe and supported by the ground. And at any time, you can think about the room around you and where you are, because that's not changing. That's going to stay the same. What's changing is what's inside of you. And it's changing not only because of the physical movement, the movement is medicine, but because your thoughts are always changing and you're aware of that now. You're aware of how you feel about your body and in your body. That's the key in somatic yoga. Take a few more. If at any time you want to stop along the way and just breathe, that invitation is there. So it's not just about where we're going, the beginning and the end. That's part of the GPS story, but about the whole journey from one position to the next. How you feel, what you say to yourself about how you feel. Can you offer kindness? Last few. And when you're ready to be still, perhaps one last time hugging your knees into your chest, rolling around so we're rounding the back and stretching it out a little bit. One big full body yawn. If you have animals at home, do it for them. They like to watch you pandiculate. Stretch, tighten the muscles to the bones, and then lengthen out. Notice that happens naturally on an inhalation, like you're yawning. And take a breath out. Just let go. See where your body lands. And if you started with a blanket or something underneath your knees, please feel free to bring that in. We'll just take just a few moments again to land. And you put a couple different ingredients in your dish inside your body today. So what does it taste like now to be still? Is there any change? More awareness or less awareness? Do your legs feel heavier or lighter? How does your pelvis feel now? Your hips? The parts of you that are in contact with the ground, including your whole spine. Is there more of a sense of feeling the floor or less? And there's no right or wrong answer to any of this. The answer comes in the observation alone, just being aware. You've already won by just being aware and offering loving kindness to whatever it is that you notice. in this magic moment when we're still, we recognize that we are the only ones that can ever be present in this space inside of us. And nobody else can do it for you either. To have this sense of awareness, this sense of embodiment, it's a gift. And I hope it's a gift you want to continue to explore with me. Feel free to stay here longer. Take your time. You might roll to one side before you come up. Feel free to leave me comments. Let me know how you like the full body pelvic tilting and what you might be using it for. And remember to subscribe. Peace, joy, love, and light.